In the freezing winter of 1636, a Dutch blacksmith walked into a smoky tavern in Amsterdam and did something completely insane. He sold his anvil, he sold his tools, he mortgaged his family's home, and he handed over his entire life savings to a stranger. In exchange, he didn't get gold, he didn't get a stake in a shipping empire. He didn't even get land, he got a piece of paper. And that paper promised him that, in 6 months, he would receive a single flower bulb. Fast forward 3 months, and that piece of paper was completely worthless. He lost everything, and he wasn't alone. Thousands of the wealthiest, smartest people on Earth bankrupted themselves for something that literally grows in the dirt. Welcome to Margin and Myth. Today, we are looking at the tulip mania of 1637 because this isn't just a story about a flower. This is the story of the world's very first economic bubble. And it proves that whether it is a flower in the 1600s, a dot-com stock in 1999, or a digital NFT of a monkey in 2022, human greed never, ever changes. To understand why smart people went crazy, you have to understand the environment they were living in. The year is 1630. The Netherlands is in the middle of what historians call the Dutch Golden Age. They are the undisputed financial capital of the world. They had just invented the modern stock market. The Dutch East India Company was bringing in unimaginable wealth from the spice trade. Suddenly, you had a massive middle class. Merchants, bakers, shipbuilders who had more money than they knew what to do with. And when people get rich quickly, what is the first thing they want? Status. They want to show everyone else how rich they are. Enter the tulip. It was brought over from the Ottoman Empire, and the Dutch were obsessed. It was exotic, it was fragile, and it was hard to grow. But the real frenzy didn't start until the flowers got sick. A specific virus known as the mosaic virus started infecting the bulbs. It didn't kill the flower. Instead, it caused the petals to break out into incredible, fiery patterns of red, purple, and white. Because they were infected, they were incredibly rare. You couldn't just plant a seed and guarantee a striped tulip. It was a lottery ticket. The most famous of these was the Semper Augustus. It was the Ferrari of the 1600s. If you had one of these in your garden, you were essentially screaming to the world, "I have made it." And as the demand for these status symbols outpaced the supply, the price began to tick upward. Then the math broke. By 1634, the actual wealthy collectors were out, the speculators had arrived. People realized you didn't actually need to want a tulip to make money off a tulip. You just needed to buy it today and sell it to some other idiot for double the price tomorrow. The greater fool theory was born, but there was a logistical problem. Tulips bloom in the spring and are dug up in the summer. For half the year, you can't physically trade them. So, the Dutch invented a workaround that would forever change global finance: the futures contract. Buyers and sellers started meeting in smoky taverns, drinking heavily, and signing contracts to buy bulbs that were still in the ground. They were trading pieces of paper. The Dutch locals literally called it the wind handle, the wine trade, because they were trading out of thin air. And the prices became entirely detached from reality. By January of 1637, the mania peaked. The price of tulips was multiplying by the hour. A single Semper Augustus bulb was sold for 5,500 guilders. To put that in perspective, the average skilled worker in Amsterdam made about 150 guilders a year. One bulb was equal to 35 years of labor. For that same price, you could buy 12 acres of prime real estate, a massive herd of cattle, and a fleet of ships. People were getting rich so fast that entire families were throwing their life savings into the tavern markets, convinced that the line would just keep going up forever. It reached a point of such pure absurdity that an English sailor visiting the docks saw a tulip bulb sitting on a merchant's desk. Thinking it was a regular onion, he picked it up, sliced it, and ate it with his fish. He was thrown in prison for eating the equivalent of a modern-day mansion. But the problem with trading air is that eventually the wind stops blowing. It is the first week of February 1637. In the city of Haarlem, a routine tulip auction is being held in a tavern. A seller stands up and offers a batch of high-quality bulbs for 1,250 guilders. No one raises their hand. He lowers the price to 1,100 guilders. Silence. He drops it to 1,000. Still, nobody bids. In that exact second, the spell was broken, the psychological illusion shattered. The buyer suddenly woke up and realized they were holding contracts for dirt and flowers that no one actually wanted to pay for. Panic is a contagion, and it moves faster than greed. Within 48 hours, the news spread from Haarlem to Amsterdam to the rest of the country. Everyone rushed to the taverns to sell their contracts. But there were no buyers, zero. The market didn't just crash. It evaporated. The price of tulips fell by 99%. Men who thought they were millionaires on Tuesday woke up on Friday owing debts they could not pay off in 10 lifetimes. The Dutch government refused to bail out the speculators. They ruled that the futures contracts were essentially illegal gambling debts. The courts were locked up for years with lawsuits, and thousands of families lost their generational wealth overnight. So, what is the myth here, and what is the margin? The myth was the belief that an asset's value is based on what the next person is willing to pay for it, rather than what the asset actually produces. The myth was that the rules of gravity no longer applied. The margin was the brutal reality check. When you look at the 1637 tulip crash, it is easy to laugh at the blacksmiths and bakers who lost their homes over a flower. But in 2008, people bought 5 houses they couldn't afford because they thought real estate could never go down. In 2021, people bought digital drawings of rocks for millions of dollars. The technology changes, the asset changes. But the human brain, wired with a toxic combination of greed and the fear of missing out, remains exactly the same. If there is one lesson to take from the Dutch Golden Age, it's this. Whenever you find yourself in a room where everyone is getting rich without producing any real value, you aren't in a new economy. You are in a tavern, trading the wind. Remember it. Thanks for watching. If you want to understand the true stories behind the money, hit the subscribe button, and I will see you in the next documentary.